Day 2 of USA team basketball has begun. Caitlin Clark is still in the midst, and women's basketball is definitely back.
There are moments in sports that feel electric before the scoreboard confirms it. Moments when the air in the arena shifts, and you sense something greater taking shape. Day 2 of Team USA women's basketball practice in Durham, North Carolina, was one of those moments. For Caitlin Clark, a player whose talent has always sparked conversation, controversy, and awe, this wasn't just another session. This was a return to form, a reclamation of confidence, and a stage upon which her story and the story of women's basketball could pivot in real time. Clark's journey this year has been anything but linear. After a sensational rookie season that captured the nation's attention, she entered her sophomore WNBA campaign with sky-high expectations. Every dribble, every shot, and every assist carried scrutiny, and the weight of being both beacon and a target became inescapable. But early season injuries threatened to derail that narrative. A left quadriceps strain, followed by groin setbacks, kept her on and off the floor, testing not just her body, but her mental fortitude. Fever fans watched helplessly as their star struggled to find rhythm, while the league's top defenses exposed the challenges of adjusting to new limitations. Then came the decision to step away for the remainder of the WNBA season, a choice that weighed heavily, both emotionally and publicly. It was a moment that forced reflection, patience, and strategy. Yet in stepping back, Clark positioned herself for a return of precision, clarity, and renewed purpose. By the time she arrived at Team USA camp, the anticipation was palpable. This was no ordinary practice. This was statement. Clark was back, and her presence promised to reshape the narrative of elite women's basketball yet again. From the very first warm-up, the difference was visible. Her movements were deliberate, yet fluid. There was caution born from recovery, but it was matched with an unmistakable intent, the intent of a player who knows her abilities and refuses to hide them. Veterans at camp, seasoned stars with multiple international medals and decades of high-level experience, naturally set a pace. But Clark's energy subtly demanded adjustments. She wasn't just participating in drills, she was influencing rhythm, tempo, and flow. What immediately stood out wasn't just her long-range shooting or her ability to thread impossibly precise passes. It was her basketball intellect, her capacity to read the floor, predict defensive rotations, and anticipate teammates' movements almost before they happened. Team USA camps are renowned for their intensity, for demanding chemistry in compressed time frame, and for testing patience and reaction under pressure. Clark didn't merely survive this environment, she thrived. She navigated the chaos of elite athletes colliding on hardwood, making decisive decisions without hesitation and demonstrating trust in the structure, in her teammates, and in her own instincts. The ripple effect of her presence was undeniable. Guards cut sharper, knowing Clark would locate them. Bigs ran harder and screened smarter, trusting her timing. Shooters spaced wider and attacked closes faster, anticipating her instinctive kick-out passes. Clark didn't need to dominate possessions to change the offense. Her vision alone elevated the collective performance. Each dribble, each pass, and each calculated acceleration made it clear. The offense operated at a higher level simply because she was on the floor. Defensively, she demonstrated a different kind of impact. While not an elite lockdown defender, Clark competed with intention. She communicated constantly, navigated switches with awareness, and engaged off-ball, maintaining energy through every possession. It wasn't flawless, but at this level, flawlessness isn't required. Purpose and grit are, and Clark brought both in abundance, leaving critics with little room to question her contribution. Beyond points scored, the human side of her presence was equally compelling. Between drills, Clark's interactions revealed her leadership in subtler forms: smiles after a missed shot, whispered encouragement to a teammate, an instinctive adjustment to create better spacing. She didn't carry the aura of a newcomer or someone seeking validation. Instead, she exuded confidence born from experience, yet tempered by humility and awareness of the team's collective mission. Trust, it became clear, was forming rapidly, and with trust comes cohesion, the invisible ingredient that transforms talented rosters into championship-caliber teams. One of the most fascinating storylines emerging from this practice was her chemistry with Jackie. Young is the kind of player whose Intelligence and versatility make her an ideal partner for someone like Clark. At 6 feet tall, she defends multiple positions, facilitates fluid offense, and can score efficiently at all 3 levels. Their early sequences on the court demonstrated an almost telepathic rhythm. Clark's ability to create spacing and advanced tempo met Young's precision in timing, cutting, and finishing. Together, they weren't just playing fast, they were playing smart, controlling pace with purpose and force. This isn't a mere anecdote. In multiple sequences, the duo displayed elite decision-making. Clark would rebound or inbound the ball with urgency, and Young anticipated her movements instinctively. Drives, kickouts, and reads flowed naturally, exposing defenses before they could react. What could have been moments of chaos instead became moments of clarity, illustrating not only talent, but basketball intelligence, timing, and unspoken trust. This chemistry, built on mutual understanding and adaptability, is exactly the kind of backcourt combination that can dominate at the international level. Tempo, in particular, highlighted their synergy. Too often, fast play is mistaken for reckless speed, but Clark and Young understand nuance. They accelerate when advantages appear, a mismatched defender, a delayed rotation, and decelerate when structure is necessary, maintaining control without surrendering initiative. This balance forces opponents to make impossible decisions in real time. Overcommit to one, and the other exploits the gap. Hesitate, and the floor opens for high-quality shots. In practice, in live drills, this principle was evident in every interaction. The result? An offense operating step ahead, not just in movement, but in thought. Clark's pairing with other stars like Aaliyah Boston further amplified possibilities. Screens, handoffs, and pick-and-roll sequences with Boston showed instinctive timing and natural understanding. Add in veteran guards, and versatile, and the result is an offensive unit capable of dominating both transition and half-court execution. Clark doesn't just excel individually, she elevates the game around her, creating a multiplicative effect where the sum is far greater than its parts. Even the discussion around Indiana Fever's roster highlights the strategic implications of Clark's growth. Kelsey Mitchell, an elite scorer and loyal franchise cornerstone, remains a dynamic offensive threat. Yet Jackie Young's complementary skill set, her size, playmaking, defensive versatility, and willingness to facilitate without needing the ball constantly, underscores a more balanced and sustainable framework for Clark to flourish. In other words, the right fit matters, and Clark's presence magnifies the impact of those around her, beyond her individual talent. What makes Clark's story compelling is the context of her return. After months of recovery, setbacks, and external scrutiny, she stepped onto a practice floor and reminded everyone why her presence matters. The WNBA season had offered moments of triumph and disappointment, but this was different here. She was not fighting for validation, but reclaiming rhythm, confidence, and joy in the sport she dominates. Each dribble, cut, and pass was a reaffirmation of identity. Clark isn't just participating, she's dictating, orchestrating, and reshaping what is possible in women's basketball. What struck observers immediately was the emotional undercurrent in every movement. Clark's energy was not just athletic, it was psychological, almost magnetic. Teammates fed off it. Defenders hesitated against it, and coaches nodded in quiet approval at her presence. There is a subtle difference between a player who scores points and a player who commands attention without needing a stat line. And Clark embodies the latter. In practice, sequences where the ball was moving at lightning speed, she paused just enough to observe, assess, and act with surgical precision. Every glance at a teammate's position, every read of a defensive shift, was processed and acted upon almost instinctively. That level of situational awareness doesn't emerge overnight. It is honed through hours of film study, relentless repetition, and the mental toughness developed in facing setbacks. Head-on, her return also carried a layer of suspense that was palpable in the room. Every possession was more than just basketball. It was a statement. Could she find her rhythm after months off? Would her timing be intact against elite defenders? Could the mental edge that makes her a transcendent talent survive the months of recovery? Early sequences suggested the answer, yes. Clark moved with confidence, but not arrogant. She attacked decisively, yet never recklessly. She pushed tempo without forcing plays. There was a balance between aggression and control that communicated, silently but clearly, that her time off had not diminished her instincts. If anything, it had sharpened them. Every pass she made seemed to carry layers of storytelling, When she threaded a needle through defenders to hit a cutting guard, it wasn't just about the assist. It was a declaration that she still sees the floor differently than anyone else. When she pulled up for a deep jumper, it was more than a point. It was proof that the range, the confidence, the audacity that defined her pre-injury season was alive and well. Even when shots didn't fall, the process never faltered. The defense was being stretched, rotations disrupted, and teammates elevated by the rhythm she set. There was a tangible sense that Clark's presence alone transformed every possession into a potential highlight, a teaching moment, and a preview of dominance yet to be realized. Clark's return was also emotionally charged for those around her. Veterans like Wilson and Sue Bird, players who have navigated the pressures of elite basketball and media, scrutiny seemed to respond instinctively to her leadership. They adjusted positioning to optimize spacing, communicated more crisply, and moved in rhythm with her anticipatory passes. Younger teammates like Paige Buchers absorbed the cues, learned in real time, and elevated their own performances. In this sense, Clark was not just a player on the floor. She was a catalyst for growth, confidence, and cohesion. Her return amplified not only her own abilities, but the abilities of every athlete she touched. Off the ball, her impact was just as profound. Coaches noted her energy in guiding rotations, in signaling adjustments, and in maintaining focus during intense drills. She became the linchpin for a team seeking chemistry in a compressed timeline. Her presence encouraged communication, trust, and decisiveness. Every glance, every gesture, every instinctive movement communicated leadership without needing words, setting the stage for a roster full of talent to operate as a synchronized unit rather than isolated stars. Finally, there was an almost poetic narrative in Clark's return, the story of resilience meeting opportunity. Months of frustration, public scrutiny, and physical limitation culminated in this moment. On this hardwood in front of these teammates, the court was no longer a place of uncertainty. It was a canvas for her craft. With every dribble, she painted confidence. With every pass, she scripted trust. And with every cut, she authored possibility. This is what makes her story compelling. Caitlin Clark doesn't just reclaim her game, she elevates the game, shaping not just her own trajectory, but the narrative of Team USA and the broader landscape of women's basketball itself. By the end of day 2, one truth had crystallized. Caitlin Clark is more than a star. She is a catalyst. Her vision, pace, and basketball IQ don't just enhance performance, they elevate the collective, redefine expectations, and challenge the sport to match her level of excellence. Every glance, every cut, every instinctive decision sends a clear message. This game unfolds around her awareness, her timing, and her brilliance. And for Team USA, for the fever, and for fans watching the sport's evolution, that realization is electrifying, unavoidable, and just beginning to ripple through the world of women's basketball.